If you've been going around the good old internet looking for the right podcast to fulfill your New York Yankees needs, well, I'll be the first to deliver the good news to you. You have found it. Here on Yapping Yankees with me, your host, Mike Scudero, you and I will be discussing the latest news, takes, and talk throughout the entire Yankee universe. Oh, and there may be some ranting on my behalf. Yeah. Anyway, what do you say we get to it? Let's get to yapping!
Lined into right field, it is a base hit. One run scores. Soto's first hit as a Yankee. Drives in a run. The Yankees are on the board. It's 4-1 Astros.
Soto up the middle for a base hit. His second base hit of the night. Juan Soto has a 3-hit night.
Boy, is Soto having a start for the Yanks or what?
Soto drives the ball down the left field line towards the corner. It's gone! Yankees take the lead. Juan Soto's first home run in pinstripes.
3-2. That one's lofted into left field. It's a base hit. That'll score Torres. Soto does it again. An RBI single, and the Yankees lead 4-3. Swinging on 3-0, and it's a base hit through the right side. Cabrera rounds third. He'll score easily. Soto's first hit in the Bronx. An RBI single. That one's lined into right field. That's going to get in there for a base hit. Torres rounds third. He's coming home. The throw is cut off. It's an RBI single for Soto. And the Yankees lead 9-2.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel like Paul Heyman, courtesy of the Yes Network, Fox, Apple TV, WFAN Sports Radio, any of the many networks that have broadcasted the Yankee games this last week and a half on TV or radio that I used in those opening clips. In case you already couldn't tell enough by that barrage of audio, the Juan Soto glaze and praise, as I'm calling it today, is continuing, only now it counts! And that's not even mentioning the already endless walks and hard-fought at-bats otherwise outside of all the early offensive production, and today's laser sac fly at the end of the game, too. Hello there, my fellow Yankee fans, and welcome to episode 215 of the Yapping Yankees podcast, where we yap about the Yanks and nothing but those Yanks, obviously. As always, I am your host, Mike Scudero, here on April 7th, 2024. Guys, how about that intro, huh? Oh, you know what? Thank you. I'll take a bow. Aside from the irrational Soto excitement, my God, I'm sweating. I honestly do not even know where to begin. God, I knew taking off this Easter in particular was going to be a tough one. It lining up with opening weekend and everything this year, the most garbage timing I've ever seen on a calendar. Ugh, the last 2 weeks. Opening weekend and all the thrill in Houston, the Diamondbacks series in Arizona, the Blue Jays series this weekend for opening weekend in the Bronx, everything in between, Easter, the earthquake the other day. Oh my God. Hope you've been well amidst it all. But what a last couple of weeks. I'm telling you, coming into today, for the last couple of days in anticipation of today, I was like starting to get anxiety. Like, how do I even structure the show for today? Where do I even begin? Oh my gosh. Well, how about we start at the obvious place, talking about how phenomenal this Yankees team has started this season off through its first week and a half. 10 games come and gone already. Busting out of the gate. Kicking ass, and appropriately, with this also being WrestleMania weekend for my fellow wrestling fans out there, and the legend who also participated in last night's main event in Night 1, laying the smacketh down on the start of their schedule. Houston, Arizona, the Blue Jays here on opening weekend. The Yankees have started 8-2.
Holy crap!
I know, Frank Barone. We've got it all. Power, bat-to-ball approach, patience at the plate, discipline, taking their walks, and yes, Soto is majorly at the center of a lot of it. I mean, just by watching a few minutes of Yankees baseball in 2024 here early in the season, you could already see the effect that he has on an entire lineup alone, like I and many others have been saying he'd have for months now. But it's just amazing to see in real time, man, when the games actually matter now. And the pitching hasn't been bad, really. I mean, there are times where the pen is looking a bit gassed. You got some of the starters not going as deep into the games as I would hope that they would at times. And that obviously taxes the pen. But, I mean, hey, it could be a lot worse. A lot worse so far. It's actually very interesting. I had someone on Twitter just tell me, can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. I have no concept of time whatsoever, as you guys know. But it was just yesterday or the day before. I had someone actually tell me, and actually be serious about it, like believing in themselves, convincingly, when they had the nerve to type this to me and waste my time with this kind of nonsense. You know I don't have a problem with any interaction of any kind, but guys, you gotta have some sensibility when you're talking about baseball. Actually told me that because of their lower run differential, I think it was only +5 after yesterday, obviously after today's win, this afternoon's win, it went higher, but claiming that their games are just basically luck, the wins that they've acquired so far, and that the team sucks. You might be asking, Mike, why do you even give these people the time of day? Well, I have to tell you, to a certain degree, when things that outrageous and ridiculous are said to me, sometimes it just amuses me to just give it the attention and actually try to grasp the thought process, even if they are trolling. I don't care. It just amuses me to try to entertain. Guys, wins can be easy. They can be hard. They can be harder than they should be. Like last night, for instance, when you have a 6-0 lead and then you win 9-8, for instance. That happens sometimes. Or sometimes you could be losing big and then have a miraculous comeback. And a lot of them, similarly to the scenario I just gave, are just straight up miracles, and you sometimes had no business even sniffing a victory. Wins come in all sorts of scenarios, shapes and sizes, if you will. It happens. All of it happens. And it being a smaller run differential has nothing to do with luck. It has to do with the fact that they lost one of their games 7-0, and a lot of the rest of the games have either been high scoring and or very close. That's all it means. Doesn't necessarily have to do with luck, and it certainly does not mean the team sucks. They're 8-2. Sometimes I gotta ask myself what it will take for certain people to allow themselves to be happy with the team. I get that it's early, but my God, can we just have a little bit of fun with what we've seen so far? My goodness. I hate that I'm giving any sort of attention to any sort of negativity here at the start of the show, but hey, it's fun. I don't know, it's just fun to tackle it. So, it has been, guys, an absolutely awesome start. 3 series come and gone already. Houston. And we all know the trouble the Yankees have had with the Astros. Arizona Diamondbacks, no sleeper. I mean, the defending National League champions, for crying out loud. Good young team. The Blue Jays, with the bats that they have in their lineup, even if we can't stomach the sight of some. Vlad Jr. Sorry about that. And yeah, they might not be hitting quite like the way that they should to start the season here, but guys, 8-2 to start against these 3 teams. I mean, I tweeted it earlier, and I'll say it again right here. But sign me up 7 days a week and twice on Sunday for this kind of a record to start the season. I mean, hell, through the first 10 games, with that kind of a schedule to start off, I would have expected this team to maybe, and wouldn't have been too surprised with, perhaps a, I don't know, like a 6-4 start, maybe even around 500. Maybe 7-3 if they were lucky. 8-2? Any day. Any day. And there have been lots of contributors to this success, guys, up and down the lineup. Glaber's had his moments, even though for the most part, especially in the Houston series, he had a bit of a slow start, but he's certainly had his moments as well. Juan Soto, I mean, come on. Judge, who started off slowly in the Houston series as well, has had a good bunch of last few games with the Arizona series and the Blue Jays series that just ended as well. Stanton, Big G, I mean, he's been, for the most part, not so great at the plate, to say the least. But today, I mean, he had the humongous home run, which we will definitely highlight in our first 2024 regular season weekly recap later on in the show. Yep, the weekly recap segment is back since the regular season is officially in full force, of course. Anthony Rizzo, he's had his moments here and there, gotten on base quite a bit, and finally hit his first home run yesterday. So there's that. And what can I say about Mr. our glorious sophomore year, Anthony Volpe? My God. The changes that this kid has made, and we've been talking about how it has looked different throughout spring training, but of course you don't really highlight it until you see how his regular season self looks. And my God, the difference that a leveled swing makes, my friends. How often were we talking about throughout the offseason whenever we would talk about Anthony Volpe? And yes, you can't talk about Juan Soto and a lot of others on this team enough, especially in the lineup, but particularly with Anthony Volpe, guys. How many months were we talking about? How he's got to shorten his approach, especially on 2 strikes. And if he were to do that, it would make a worlds of difference for Anthony Volpe. And my God, the difference it has made. Leveled swing, multiple hits, most of the games of the year so far. Currently owns the highest batting average in the American League, too, might I add, as well. And it's just made absolutely all the difference. The defense is still there. Even the stolen bases have continued to resurface at a couple today. And it's not even that he was awful in his rookie season in 2013. Like I've said many times when talking about his season, it was kind of a mixed bag because he had started off stealing a bunch of bases, getting on base decently. And then, unfortunately, throughout the rest of the season, for the vast majority of it, the strikeouts increased, the walks decreased. He started to get on base less often. The swing was long and just not very protective. Didn't really have that much of a bat-to-ball approach, even with 2 strikes. The batting average suffered as a result of it. But he also showed some decent pop, hitting 20-plus home runs, doing 20-20 in his rookie year with the stolen bases and the home runs. Had a decent amount of runs batted in. So like I said, and obviously you have the great defense that won him a Gold Glove in his rookie year, his first Gold Glove, obviously. So it was definitely a mixed bag for Anthony Volpe in his rookie year, but we were talking about for months throughout the offseason, even into spring training and right before the season started, how much of a difference it would make for this kid if he could level out his swing and take away that huge, long, letting the hips fly open and just take away a lot of that, especially on 2 strikes, change the approach, shorten up the swing, level it out. And these are things that you could learn as you accumulate more experience, work with your staff more often if you're working with the right people. And we have seen all of that take place in the early part of the season so far. I mean, this kid has gotten multiple hits seemingly every single game with no signs of it slowing down. Even on pitches that he would have easily been beaten on, or maybe with that long swing of last season and non-protective approach, especially on 2 strikes, probably a lot of pitches that he's hit so far would have probably been strikeouts with 2023 Anthony Volpe. It's not the case this year. It's definitely a lot different. You see all the breakdowns that are being done by all kinds of baseball analysts, all kinds of things that we were talking about for months that Anthony Volpe could afford to improve for his sophomore year, his second year in the league. I had people tell me that they thought Anthony Volpe was going to be taking a step down for 2024. I said, nah, I think he's going to learn a lot. Only up from here, a kid with his talent, and I'm so glad that that is playing out to fruition so far in the first 10 games here. He looks terrific. He looks fantastic. I can't ask for anything more. Absolutely amazing. The patience, the plate discipline, he's taking his walks, he's getting on base, he's stealing his bases, he's putting the bat on the ball, getting endless hits. Endless. Another 3 today. So I'm very happy to see that. We are seeing great offense the vast majority of the time, maybe except for, 2 games out of the 10 so far. An offense can't be terrific every single day. You're going to get your bad days. But for the most part, guys, the guts, the resilience, the resolve that we have seen in a lot of the games, especially starting out in the Houston series, their guts were tested a lot in that series. The vast majority of the time, they were losing until the later part of the game. And they showed spirit, and they came back. I don't care how much the Astros suck at home. They might suck at home since the start of 2023. That is a fact. However, you cannot tell me that a large amount of these games so far, out of the 10 so far, you cannot tell me that the 2023 Yankees would have won a lot of the games that the 2024 Yankees have won so far, because you would be lying straight through your teeth. The 2023 team, because of injuries or otherwise, was for the most part gutless. We would talk about this all the time last season. They would lose the vast majority of these games that the 2024 Yankees were tested in, and that they passed with flying colors. Didn't matter how much they were down by the end of the game. They came back, they clawed their way back, and ended up sweeping Houston on the road. I believe they have now won their last 7 in a row against the Astros. They continue that into Arizona, especially into the last game, that really tough game that also tested them greatly, that they also ended up walking away with a victory. And they come home against the Blue Jays and also win 2 out of 3. We'll get into all the details of the game later on in Weekly Recap, of course, but just a lot of things I'm liking so far, guys. Again, the pitching, starters could go deeper at times, yeah. Marcus Stroman is definitely the best example of a starter doing what they're supposed to do as far as length into a game. I hope the rest of them ultimately follow suit as they continue to build here. But if they don't, yeah, that bullpen's going to continue to be taxed. I would imagine we're going to be getting some roster moves going into tomorrow or maybe into the off day on Thursday after the Marlins series, because there should definitely be some guys unavailable, at least to start the Marlins series, with how they've had to throw them the last couple of days in particular. But yeah, they've been taxed quite a bit. They've held up, for the most part. They have. Even if we've had to have our many anxiety attacks throughout the mid to later part of the games when the bullpen was in the last few days. But they've held up. They've done their job ultimately. But that won't last forever if you tax them bad enough. So yeah, something's going to have to give, and probably going to see some roster moves coming up. But the pitching's holding up better than I thought it would. Again, even with our anxiety attacks mixed in there from Clay Holmes or otherwise. But they're hanging in. And the offense, again, with the exception of like 2 games, just as fun as I anticipated them being. Maybe even a little more so. No complaints here, guys. Very little to no complaints throughout the first 10. But we're going to keep on moving right along here, guys, right into Yankees news, because God knows we've got a lot to cover today, especially in news, because a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks between injury news, roster news, even news around Major League Baseball that might be relevant to the Yankees. So we've got a lot to catch up on between, first off, starting how the opening day roster turned out, going into the first game of the year against the Astros, how the roster shaped up after spring training ended on Monday, 2 weeks ago. And then so on and so forth from there, guys. You got some depth moves happening as well, injuries going on, roster news beyond that still continuing. So let's get to it, starting from the last time we spoke. Basically right away, going into the last day of spring training, the Yankees had optioned Cody Poteet, Ron Marinaccio, and Nick Ramirez to Triple-A Scranton Wilkes-Barre, and they had also reassigned Will Warren to minor league camp. Clayton Beeter did make the roster, which I was very happy about at the time. I did feel like he deserved to make it, even if he wasn't a 5th starter selection. We had spoken about 2 weeks ago. This had been announced by the time we spoke last, that Luis Heel did make it as the 5th starter, which is what I wanted. But I did still want Clayton Beeter to make the roster at some capacity, even if it were as a bullpen arm, and he did. So I was very happy to hear that. They did also announce that day, and there would be more developing news on certain things like this as well as the days went along, so hang with me. They did also announce that DJ would start the season on the injured list. Obviously, that has grown much worse since the last time we spoke, and this was even announced, so we'll get to that later. But that Rizzo would also be back in before the season started, so that was good, that he'd be ready for opening day. And he also played in the final spring training game anyway, like we had spoken about going into the last day. I don't know if we should expect him, but if we should, then that's only a good sign. So it was good to see him in that last game at least, get a couple more reps in before opening day. And also, roster-wise, the Yankees also reassigned De Los Santos and Luis Torrens to minor league camp. Kevin Smith and Oscar Gonzalez were sent down as well. Nick Birdie and Clayton Beeter officially made the roster. So, that was also something that I got to give credit to. I don't remember who it was that said it. You'll have to forgive me if you're listening and I'm forgetting who you were. Bunch of weeks ago, somebody did tell me that they thought that Nick Birdie, like towards the earlier-ish part of spring training, they thought that Nick Birdie might make the opening day roster. And I was saying I doubt it. Well, listen, I always own up to when I was wrong. I said that I doubt that he would make it, even though he still did look good in spring training, of course. No argument there. But I just thought they would go with other arms. But they didn't. You know, whether that's because certain guys like Tommy Kahnle were out or whatnot, regardless of the reason, I was wrong. Nick Birdie made it. He is still there. He has done a fine job for the most part here. So credit to whoever said early on in spring training that they thought that Nick Birdie could be an opening day roster option. You were right. Well done there. And also, speaking of Oscar Gonzalez, after they had announced that he was sent down, really not a good day for him, in that series in New Mexico, which did not turn out to be a pretty one, but the games don't count, so who really cares at all? Not me. But the thing I do care about, because you always hate to see this happen, is that as it was announced that he was being sent down, Gonzalez had fouled a ball off in New Mexico, and the ball ricocheted into his face. And he actually got a right orbital fracture as a result of it. And he had to be taken off the field. Not a good scene. So all the best to Oscar Gonzalez. Hopefully he's feeling at least a little bit better now, because it's been at least a couple of weeks since then. But still awful. Absolutely awful. Not a great day for him at all. Not one of the better days of his life, I'm sure. So hope he's okay. Hope he's recovering all right. And we'll see in the future if he has any part on this team at all. And see what will happen with him. Then you jump a couple of days to Wednesday the 27th. And the Yankees actually announced that they had made a trade with the Marlins for Jon Berti to help out with infield depth. We have, of course, seen him play quite a bit already here in the early going. He has played third base, and he has gotten quite a good amount of at-bats. Obviously, with Peraza out for a while, DJ having started the season on the injured list, and so on and so forth, I certainly understood it. Didn't have a problem with it at all. As far as the remainder of the trade, in exchange, they gave the Marlins 18-year-old outfield prospect John Cruz. No problem with this at all. After all, if you look at Berti at all, and you've probably seen some of it in the early going here in 2024, he's very versatile. He can play multiple positions. He's very fast, solid defense, contact guy, like everyone's always complaining they haven't done enough of in recent years past. So I was really liking the move, and I took it upon myself to look at some stats as well. Last year, in 133 games, he had actually a .294, 7 home runs, 16 stolen bases. He had led Major League Baseball in stolen bases in 2022 with 41. So definitely that speed that I had mentioned earlier. So all good here with that. And from the sound of it, this is the exact kind of guy you want on your team when you need a hand during injuries. And especially as a bench piece when needed. Just a good guy to be able to call on when you need him. But that's not all, actually, because the trade actually didn't end there. It was actually a 3-team trade. And the third team involved was actually the Tampa Bay Rays. So the Yanks dealing with both Florida teams. One of them a division rival, obviously. And the Rays, the person they received was none other than Ben Rortvedt from the Yanks, which I got no problem with. And the Marlins also picked up a prospect from the Rays, Shane Sasaki. So ultimately, Yanks get a solid pickup in Jon Berti. Marlins get themselves 2 prospects, and the Rays got Rortvedt, who I, to be honest with you, never really cared all too much for anyway. And the Yanks have enough catchers in their system regardless. So, all good with that move. Boy, that Minnesota trade is looking stellar. Oh, gosh. Roster moves that ultimately solidified the opening day roster. The Yankees first off placed DJ LeMahieu on the 10-day injured list retro to March 25th with that right foot contusion, which, yes, of course, the injury has changed. Again, bear with me. They also placed Oswald Peraza on the 10-day injured list retro to the 25th as well with a right shoulder strain. Placed Tommy Kahnle on the 15-day injured list with the right shoulder inflammation, also retro to the 25th. He is also still ramping down, unfortunately, on his throwing program from the last I heard, but still just trying to work his way back. He's still just behind. I don't know, man. Tommy is actually, I don't know how many people know this, but Tommy's actually one of the older people on the team. Not to age you, Tommy. I still love you, but I don't know. It's not looking good for him. Just the injuries the last bunch of years. And when he came back last year after all the bicep tendonitis problems, he looked fantastic. But if he's going to miss this much time due to injury again and just take more steps backwards with injuries, I don't know, man. He might be nearing the end, as much as I hate that. Because, again, I love Tommy. And when he's out there, he still pitches really well. So, I don't know, man. I hope he could just work his way back ultimately. This is the last year of the couple-year contract the Yankees signed him to when he returned, of course. So, I just hope in the last year, if this is in fact his last year period, then I hope he manages to come back at some point and make some sort of a presence and contribute to the team. So, but it's unfortunate. It's taken him some time to get ready here. I don't know how much longer he'll be out, and I don't think the Yankees know either. They also placed McKinley Moore on the 15-day injured list retroactive to the 25th of March. They placed Garrett Cole on the 60-day with his right elbow inflammation. Really no surprise there, but the Yankees actually did get some good news today with Garrett Cole, and I'll be sure to mention that later on in news as well. They did recall Luis Gil officially from AAA, obviously because he won the 5th spot in the rotation. They signed Nick Birdy to his Major League contract and selected him to the active roster for the bullpen, like we had said before, so congrats to the person who, early on in spring training, again, said that he could make the roster. You were correct, and he has looked really good so far. Hard thrower, pretty good locator. He could be wild at times. He's shown that occasionally, but for the most part, he's looked very good. And they also officially added John Birdie, a couple of birdies, spelled differently though, but they added John Birdie, who they had acquired from the Marlins, of course, to the Major League roster after trading for him from the Marlins, so they made that official. So the final roster, after all of this, consisted of 2 catchers in Jose Trevino and Austin Wells, Anthony Rizzo for first base, Glaber for second, Volpe for short, John Birdie for third, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Jahmai Jones. Congratulations to Jahmai Jones for making it for infield utility. We said that he was one of the other names being thrown around to possibly make the roster, and he did make it. So that's the entire infield with Peraza and DJ both injured so far. DH being Stanton, of course. Outfield, Judge, Soto, Verdugo, and Grisham. So that's your 13 on offense. And then there are obviously the 13 pitchers to round off the 26-man roster. 5 starters, Rodon, Stroman, Nestor, Clark, and Heel, and the 8 relievers, Clay Holmes, and at the time this has since changed since he was sent back down. We'll get to that too. But Holmes, Clayton Beater, Nick Birdy, Caleb Ferguson, Victor Gonzalez, Ian Hamilton, this has also changed unfortunately, we'll get to that, Jonathan Loaisiga, and Luke Weaver. So that was your 26-man roster heading into opening day. On Friday the 29th, another trade was announced. J.T. Brubaker was traded from the Pirates to the Yankees for a player to be named later. And a little bit of a head-scratcher here is that Brubaker, this is not the first time you heard Cashman make a trade like this, but he's actually currently on the 60-day injured list recovering from Tommy John surgery. And he's targeting the All-Star break for a return. So, and aside from that, the numbers for him are honestly pretty awful. I don't really know how else to say it. Career ERA of basically 5. I think it's 4.99, so pretty much 5 even. But he's got good stuff, I guess, that could end up really effective with the right guidance. I mean, who knows? Mid-90s sinker. It sounds similar to other success stories under a certain Matthew Blake, like Clay Holmes. I don't know. Just odd that there's yet another trade for someone who can't even be used, and not even until anytime soon, but for months. Talking about a long time. I mean, I get it's possible depth for down the line, but I mean, whatever. Oh, and the Pirates also sent over international signing money. We know the Yankees and their international signing money. Could be more so for that the whole time, but who knows? Time will tell with Brubaker. But the international signing money, we know that is always a grab for the Yankees, and they always do well with it, signing these international studs. We know that. Saturday the 30th. Now, here's the follow-up with DJ that I was alluding to earlier with how things changed. Turns out it was not just a contusion. DJ actually has a non-displaced bone fracture. This was announced 8 days ago on Saturday the 30th by Aaron Boone, and he'll be re-imaged in 2 weeks, which it's been at least a week since then, so I imagine the re-imaging will be in about a week from now. Different from the bone bruise we were originally told. I mean, we're not, I think it's pretty obvious at this point, guys. We're not seeing Bro for some time. So, it's just unfortunate. I don't know how they missed it, or if they even did miss it originally. I don't know what the deal is here. Went from a contusion to a non-displaced fracture. I don't know. But I'm not a doctor. I'm not in with the Yankees. I don't know what's going on day to day. I'm not sure. But we are obviously not seeing DJ for a while, because whether it's non-displaced, displaced, what have you, fractures take a while. And then he's got to work his way back, probably in rehab games, to get his timing back, get his at-bats down in real live games. We're not seeing him for a while, guys. I don't know, man. DJ with the feet, he can't seem to get it under control. I don't really know what they're going to do about this, but it's not working out, guys. Since that contract, I hate to say it, I was such a big proponent for that contract, and I think any sensible person was at the time. I mean, you could say that you anticipated a decline, but there's no way to really know that for sure. No one's a fortune teller. We're all always wrong at one point or another. But, I mean, after his 2019 and 2020, you had to bring the guy back, and considering what people are being signed to nowadays contractually, I mean, it's really not even that for that much money. It's kind of a bargain in hindsight, but I mean, not so much even when you're missing that much time, as much as he is. And all with the feet. I mean, it sucks. It's out of his control. It was a foul ball off the foot. He can't do anything about that. You don't know where the ball's going to go after you hit it. But it doesn't change the fact that it's just not going well with DJ. It's just not. So, we'll see how long he's out, and we'll see what the re-imaging shows when he does go for it. I imagine we'll be hearing more in about a week. But we'll see. They had also optioned Clayton Beeter to the minors on Saturday, which was really weird, and I'll explain why in a second, but they optioned him, and the Yanks in exchange called up Tanner Tully, who wasn't even on the 40-man, so they had to DFA Nick Ramirez to make room on the 40-man for Tully, so a bit of a head-scratcher of a roster move there. But with Beeter, it was especially weird because, as I alluded to a second ago, in the second game of the season when he did pitch, he had only thrown 3 pitches in his appearance in Houston, so really weird. Not 100% sure there. I'm sure we'll see him again, but still weird. Easter Sunday. So a week ago now. Slowly but surely we're getting there. Following the Yanks' epic series sweeping victory like we spoke about before, they actually had announced that they had also acquired right-handed pitcher Jake Cousins, who we saw in today's game against the Blue Jays, from the Chicago White Sox in exchange for cash considerations. The good old cash considerations again. Jake Cousins is 29 years old, going on 30 years old, right-handed reliever, for some more pitching depth. And obviously it would make sense once we heard later down the line what happened to a certain somebody else. My boy Johnny Lowe, unfortunately, so can't hurt. And I mean, his numbers are also pretty nice so far in his big league career as a whole. Not too great as of late with the White Sox before coming here, but as a whole in his career, spanning 51 games and 52 2/3 innings, a 3.08 ERA. It's not bad, I'll take that. He didn't really look too sharp in today's game, but not a lot of pitchers did. It might have had something to do with the cold, which is understandable. But, yeah, he looked a little wild today. But his fastball has a lot of movement on. His slider is gorgeous, so he has the potential to get a lot of guys fooled. He looks like he has some really good put-away stuff, but today was a little wild. Overall career numbers, though, certainly promising. Big fan of it. This also made the Tanner Tully call-up make slightly more sense, I guess. Even though I still want Beeter out there anyway. But it more so made the Tully thing make more sense because he's really not all that impressive. Because they DFA'd Tully to make room for Cousins on the 40-man. So that answers that, I guess, you know. They did end up DFAing Nick Ramirez for Tully, but now Tully, who's really not that great, I didn't really like what I saw of him. Now he's DFA'd to make room for Cousins, who would definitely be a better option, I would say, at least numbers-wise. So, and Tully ended up getting outrighted to AAA anyway, so he's still in the organization, just not on the 40-man. So, then 2 days ago, so you jump way past that roster stuff, acquiring Jake Cousins in the trade with the White Sox and the roster move with Tanner Tully and Jake Cousins. 2 days ago, so again, jumping all the way to Friday now. But honestly, 2 days ago, a notification hit my phone. This has to do with a certain somebody that I had mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that I said I'd get to later. Well, here it is. Certain notification hit my phone, and At this point, I've already hit this point in the past, but even more so now. But I've never been less surprised to read a sentence like the one that I read Friday morning that popped up on my phone, unfortunately. I've never been less surprised to read a certain sentence in my entire life. Jonathan Loáisiga was unfortunately placed on the 60-day injured list with what was originally, and still is, but has since, progressed, with a right flexor strain. Even though he had appeared in a number of games to start the season and looked just fine, but right flexor strain. And in turn, obviously because 60-day injured list, you're off the roster and also off of the 40-man, as we know. The Yankees brought up right-handed pitcher Dennis Santana for the bullpen, who we had seen a couple of times already in the last few days. Looks pretty sharp for the most part. And signed him to a major league contract to replace him on the roster and take Jonathan Loáisiga's place on it. And the reason I was as unsurprised as I was, well, unfortunately, isn't it obvious? I mean, I don't like to get on guys for getting injured, but I mean, it's out of their control, and they're probably the last ones who want to be out, obviously, but I was thinking, are we just going to sit here and act like this isn't just an annual occurrence for Jonathan Loáisiga at this point? If you've been even somewhat of a long-time follower of mine, or even a recent one, because I was pumping him up big time in the first few games of the season, yet again like I always do, I love the guy. I love his stuff. I love Jonathan Loáisiga. I think he's a hell of a talented arm out of the bullpen. Electric. Even great breaking stuff as well, but come on. It's literally, it's the first thought I had. It's literally an every-year thing, a 60-day IL stint, or just some sort of an extended IL stint of some sort. It's pretty much a guarantee every year. And I was just thinking, well, here's this year's, I guess. Which also, by the way, I want to mention this too. As much as I do love the guy, I want to keep emphasizing that, is also why I immediately did not, if you recall, like the idea of him being the multi-inning option when King got traded. You remember in the offseason, and even heading into spring training, that the Yankees had announced that they had planned on having Jonathan Loáisiga as one of the, or maybe even the multi-inning guy or guys out of the bullpen in Michael King's absence after the trade. And I immediately, as much as I love Loáisiga, not that I didn't believe in him or his stuff, but because of his health issues, I immediately did not see it going well. If you recall, I did say that on this show, I promise. I do not lie about what I say. I own up to my baseball takes. Hell, I just admitted that I was wrong before, and I always do, whenever I am. But I'm also right about a good amount of things, and this is one of them. I mean, Loáisiga, he had this happen with the injuries countless times as a one-inning guy. I mean, just by logic, bumping it up higher naturally would likely only increase the likelihood. But then, yesterday, because it wasn't over there, it was announced that Loáisiga, he himself had said that he had a torn UCL, and he is going to need season-ending surgery. He bafflingly did say, though, that it will not be Tommy John surgery, but he is still expected to recover in the time span of between 10 to 12 months. So originally what went from, we were hoping like 60-ish days, and then now a few days later it went to the entire year with a torn UCL. And here we are. Well, get better, man. I mean, what else can even be said at this point? It's just sad. He can't stay healthy. He just can't. And that's a big arm to lose. I know I just got done saying before that this is usually an annual thing with Jonathan Loáisiga. It's basically a foregone conclusion that it's going to happen, an extended IL stint. But not only is it just extended, it's the entire year, but still it doesn't change the fact of how good he still is when he is out there and how big of a loss it is. especially to lose him for a whole year. I mean, the Yankees do have their share of talent in their system, and they've done a good job at making their good pickups, especially with guys who were major unknowns before and turning them into big-time knowns. But it's still tough. You see guys with talent like that, and they can't get out of their own way, or rather their bodies can't get out of their own way, because they just won't allow them to stay healthy and do what they are so freaking good at. And Loaisiga is one of those people. It's almost like he's cursed. Just can't get over it. And it only took about a week to happen this time, or less. It just sucks. I love the guy. He's so good. But unfortunately, this probably also does spell the end of his time in pinstripes. Because for anybody who may have forgotten, when it comes to the contract situation with Loaisiga, this is the last year of control and arbitration in his service time. After this season, he is an unrestricted free agent. And he has the opportunity to go out there and get some big money if he wants. But I doubt that it'll really be anything massive because, I mean, unfortunately, while he's proven how good his stuff is for years now, he has also proven very much so that he cannot stay healthy. He just can't. I know the absurd contracts that are being handed out these days as well, but I don't know. It's going to be up to other people if they want to take that chance. He's going into his age 30 season as of 2025. We'll see what happens. But I'll be surprised unless they're just desperate for bullpen help if the Yankees bring him back, to be honest. Could very well be the last that we have seen of Jonathan Loaisiga in a Yankee uniform. So it's important to keep that in perspective as well. We'll see what happens down the line with him, but really, really sucky news with Johnny Lowe. So, I mean, what else can be said? Especially at this point. Just get better, man. See what happens down the line. But also on Friday, this was a bit of a surprise. This was the left field thing of all time, I think. I mean, did we have this on our bingo card? I think not. I certainly didn't. I'd be straight up lying if I said I did. But it turns out that, remember this name? Rougned Odor? Well, the Yankees signed him back. But maybe not how you think. It is on a minor league deal, and there is an opt-out on it after July 1st. So, much less so, on a much lesser scale. He's not even on the big league roster, of course. It is a minor league deal. But hey, I mean, there's a possibility we could see him, but there's also a possibility that we may never see him, and he just stays down in the minors. But I thought it was funny and worth reporting, and it's, of course, important to report everything that happens with the Yankees on a podcast that is all about the Yankees. But especially in the event that we do find him here again, because you just never freaking know, especially with the Yankees, it is also important to report it for that reason. But let's actually, not that it's against Odor himself, I have no problem with Rugi, but let's actually hope that we don't see him. You might be asking, Mike, why would you say that? Well, because if we do, it's probably because the roster is an absolute shambles in one way or another. Whether it be in one area with one player or in multiple, and there was no other choice. That's probably the scenario we'd see him in. So let's, for the sake of our sanity, hope that we do not have to call upon him. But anyway, thought it would be good to know for all of us that Rugi is back in the Yankees organization. So there you go. And the last piece of Yankees news really for today, and one that should bring a smile to everyone's faces, even though he's still a ways off, obviously. Garrett Cole is apparently reported to be starting up his throwing program once again, either tomorrow or on Tuesday. So that is definitely very welcome news. Garrett Cole taking first major step on his way back, I would say. And he is targeting, he has said, a June 1st return. I did say give or take around Memorial Day. That puts him about a week or less after that. So it's just about right. But targeting June 1st, give or take. We'll see if he can actually accomplish that and how he'll be when he does return. Obviously, with any sort of elbow issue, despite them verifying that there is no UCL tear, at least as of now. Knock on wood, please. But as of now, it's still something you got to be delicate with. Anything with the elbow, you have to be. So I'm sure he's got the right people around him, I would hope. Someone like him probably also has a team of his own that he relies on as well, possibly on top of the people the Yankees might be providing for him. And obviously also, not to mention, him being the pitching expert that he is himself does not hurt either. We all know how much of an expert he is at the pitching craft in general, let alone with his own. So we'll see how he progresses going forward, but definitely a big piece of news that Gerrit Cole's starting, I would say, is pretty much the first of many steps on his journey back that we hope turns out to be as painless and quick as humanly possible. Because especially with seeing how at times the rotation doesn't quite give the length that they should be, just one reason amongst the many, and the fact that it's freaking Gerrit Cole, that you get someone like him back as soon as possible because he's the definition of a workhorse and even battles through as hard as he does, even on days that he doesn't have it. I mean, I don't have to sit here and tell you why Gerrit Cole's great. We all know. So we'll see how it progresses from here. Really, the last pieces of news that I wanted to discuss is more on a Major League Baseball level. And if you remember a little bit ago when I had alluded to some Major League Baseball news that might relate at least a little bit to the Yankees, you'll make sense of what I mean when I tell you what it pertains. First piece of news, though, is a bit unrelated, other than the fact that he was apparently communicating with the Yankees, but still far off. But did want to mention that Jordan Montgomery, well, talked about how long Blake Snell went unemployed, but Montgomery finally decided to employ himself a couple of nights after we last spoke on the 24th. On Tuesday the 26th, he had signed a contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it was not the Yankees. It was not the Red Sox. It was not anybody else but the Arizona Diamondbacks. Obviously, the Yankees did not see him. He is not ready to go as of yet. Needs time to ramp up because of how long he took to sign and employ himself. But he did sign a contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks. We again got reports that the Yankees were talking to him, were communicating with him, and they were discussing things, but that they were apparently pretty far off with each other. It was sounding much more likely that he was to sign to the Boston Red Sox, or with the Boston Red Sox, rather. But no, chose completely differently, the other league, and even went to the West Coast. So, very interesting there. Finds himself in the NL West now with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So an interesting choice, I think it's safe to say, by Jordan Montgomery. And as far as contract details, the contract itself is actually just 1 year, but it's worth $25 million. It's quite a bit for 1 year, for any year, for Montgomery. I mean, he's good, but $25 million. It's a decent amount. But it does include also, and here's the catch, because usually when you see a contract that low, there's usually a catch to it, especially with someone as desired as Montgomery by a number of teams, but it also includes a vesting option for 2025. If Montgomery starts 10 games this year, then his 2025 contract option will vest at $20 million and turn into a 2-year contract, of course. If he has the second year added on, the 1 year will turn into a 2-year. So he has to start at least 10 games, and then that vesting option will kick in. So definitely an interesting contract. But Montgomery is officially a Diamondback. So there's that. When it comes to the news around the league that might relate to the Yankees, and this is a little rant I'm probably going to end up going on here. Not so much of a rant, but just an exchange of thoughts, I guess. But in the last couple of days alone, with the Loaisiga news included, you have the Loaisiga update about his torn UCL. And then you had a couple of other very discouraging pieces of news in the last couple of days as well, being that Shane Bieber is announced to be getting Tommy John surgery, and Spencer Strider of the Braves also apparently has a damaged UCL. This grouped with the Loaisiga news, all in a couple of days' time, to go along with all of the other pitching injuries in Major League Baseball. My friends, we have spoken about this for some time now. It has been a topic of discussion on this show in the recent past, and it will be again here today. I have called this, and so have many others, I have called the pitcher injury issues in Major League Baseball right now an epidemic. Because it is. Just left and right. UCL issues, shoulder issues. It's usually UCL and all these surgeries, whether it be shoulder surgery, Tommy John surgery, or repairing the UCL, but not necessarily Tommy John surgery like in Loizaga's case. All these things that require long recoveries and just a lot of missed time for a lot of the game's top arms. Which, of course, has to be highly painful and highly frustrating and highly saddening for the athletes themselves. And I do feel for them, like I always say, but also is obviously bad for the sport. And I say, honestly, at this point in time, this has been a problem for a while now, but this just left and right just in the last couple of days with some top arms in the game, like right now. This was the straw that broke the camel's back for me after all of this. Something has got to be done. I even said on Twitter yesterday that an investigation or even a massive study has to be done at this point in time by Major League Baseball into what is truly causing these injuries. It could be multiple causes. There are a bunch of different things that people are throwing out there. It could be the newly introduced pitch clock. Pitchers don't have enough time in between pitches to get ready. It could be rushing their arms, and it could be hurting them somewhat. Fine, if you think that, that's fine. Or how about the complete ban of the sticky stuff? Making them grip the ball harder than ever before since they don't really have that help. And therefore also doing that to try to get more spin on their pitches, and that's causing them to really hurt their hands, like the flexor, or their forearm, or their elbow. It's all connected. And then obviously with the shoulder, some people are saying, well, just right now, the pitchers overall are throwing harder than they've ever thrown. With the pitch count that they have, the human body's not designed to do that on a regular basis like they are required to now. They didn't necessarily do the same thing back then. Sure, pitcher injuries still happened decades and decades ago, but not nearly on this scale, obviously. They also did not pitch the same. They didn't pitch nearly as hard. Obviously, as time goes along, more pitches are created, like back then. Back in the 20s and 30s in Babe Ruth's era. Fastball, curveball. Now, there's like a dozen different pitches to throw. So the possibilities are endless. I've even heard some people saying that this issue starts with the pressure that's put on young athletes down in the youth baseball leagues. There are tons of different ideas that are being put out there. Me personally, I think it could be a little bit of everything. Least of them all, the pitch clock. I do think, yeah, it's probably a little bit of a scenario where maybe some guys are rushing into it, maybe not as ready as they could afford to be. And maybe it's rushing their arms into even more stress than was before. It could be a little bit of the reason. I would put more stock personally into the fact that no sticky help is really allowed. For as long as time will allow us to go back when baseball started, whether it was too severe or if it was barely anything, pitchers usually used some sort of substance, their sweat, sunscreen. Some people use the straight-up sticky stuff, like spider tack or whatnot. Depends. But pitchers used something, the vast majority of them, for so long. I know some people get off on putting Garrett Cole, making him the poster boy for all this stuff, just because he's good. But that's really the only reason. Because he's a top arm in the game, and of course he was kind of exposed for it years back. But with the spider tack. But to act like everybody wasn't doing it. Yeah, two wrongs don't make it right. It's not the argument I'm trying to make. But for forever, pitchers did this. Regardless of the method or the substance, it was done forever. And now that it's not allowed, checked after every inning and whatnot, but they have to put a whole new emphasis on how they grip the ball more severely now. And on top of that, having to also do so to get their continued spin rates that would probably be raised with the help of any sort of sticky stuff they could come up with. Probably be easier to get the spin rate up with the help of that. Now there's none of that. So you have to grip it harder as to not lose control, not lose your command to begin with. And then when you have to throw your braking stuff or your off-speed stuff and still create that severe spin that you were getting before, that requires even harder and more complex grip. And that will only put more stress on the hand muscles, the forearm, the elbow, even the shoulder. You factor that in with how hard they throw pitches now. People are throwing harder than ever. I remember when I first started watching baseball, even in 2007-ish, you usually had one guy on the team that would throw absolute gas, usually coming out of your bullpen. Now, I would even go as far as to say that if you don't throw hard as a bullpen arm, you're actually kind of weird. You're like kind of sus, kind of suspect there. You're coming out of the bullpen and not throwing absolute gas? Can't even touch 97 on the radar gun? What the hell's the matter with you? That's just how the game has changed. And the same with some starters. Like Garrett Cole throws really hard. Obviously, we saw how hard that DeGrom was throwing. He's throwing 102 in some starts. People are throwing harder than ever. That's the point. And especially if you factor in how the arms are being expected to handle this with certain pitch counts, especially in the case of starters. Obviously, back then, if they were throwing less hard and had less pitches to throw, that maybe resulted less so in them having to emphasize on grip and have to do these severe methods to increase spin rate, things that weren't really kept as much track of, if at all, back then of course they were probably able to throw more pitches, 150 to 200 pitches in a game, pitching a doubleheader like Don Newcomb, pitching a 16-inning game like Juan Marichal. Obviously, things have changed. But is it for the better at this point? Because right now, the game is missing some of its top arms, like some of the ones I just mentioned to you before. Garrett Cole added to that. How much time has Jacob deGrom missed? Steven Strasburg, with all the talent that he always had whenever he was able to find himself on a mound, whenever he wasn't freaking hurt, has had to retire. The examples are endless. I can go on all day, guys. It's an epidemic. They need to find out what to do. And I definitely wouldn't put it past them to think that it could be starting from young, too. I mean, how many guys do you hear coming into baseball now? Oh, they've already had at least one Tommy John surgery done on them already. So it could definitely be starting from young, too. But the lack of help with the grip, I'm not saying that spider tack should be allowed or anything that's completely overboard. I know that it's tough, like where do you draw the line? But I think at least a little bit of help should be allowed. I don't think it would hurt. Maybe it would help them with gripping, and maybe it wouldn't put so much stress on the hand or the elbow or the forearm, all connected. Maybe it would help a little bit to allow them a little bit of help again with the grip. I mean, I'm sure their sweat still helps a little bit. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is now. It's pretty tricky from what I understand. But maybe that would help a bit. I've seen some people mention enforcing a six-man rotation. Give them an extra day of rest in the starting rotation for the starters, at least. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Honestly. If that helps, then it helps. Something has to be done to lessen these pitcher injuries, guys. I know it's a little bit different with Loizaga because he's a bullpen arm. But, I mean, looking at guys like Shane Bieber and Spencer Strider, a couple others biting the dust now with damaged elbows. It's just such a shame. I mean, hey, I will admit, again, another admission of me being wrong here. Shane Bieber. How many months have I been saying I wish the Yankees traded for him? Well, it would appear now that they dodged a colossal bullet. Because now he's getting Tommy John surgery, and he's missing the entire year. And the extra shame of it is, too, is that in his first couple of starts of the year, he was looking fantastic. Because he is ultimately, even if he's had injury troubles, when he's on that mound, he is a top arm in the game, whether you like it or not. Shane Bieber is terrific, and he looked so in his first couple of starts. Now he's down for the year. So, hey, I was wrong about Bieber. I did admit, when talking about him, that I know the injury risk is there, and is it ever there now, missing the whole year? But, hey, I also have to admit when I'm wrong. Because he's missing the whole year now, and that would have sucked for the Yankees if they ended up trading for him, giving away who knows who. And having to be faced with that, that would have sucked. But aside from all that, it's just a shame. Spencer Strider's a shame. It all sucks. A lot of it's UCL, elbows, forearm problems, hand issues. Oh, my God. I mean, what do you do? I hear a lot of people saying with the hard throwing issue, which I acknowledged before, and I'm sure has a lot to do with it. still being expected to throw 100-plus pitches with the speed and the velocity that the pitchers throw at. And with all the complex pitches they have, with the mechanics that they need and the stress they put on the arm as a result of it, with getting that spin rate and having the pitches dip more severely and whatnot. The problem is, though, if you were to take a step back maybe into baseball of the past a bit and step away a little bit from that, how do you really go back without a really harsh adjustment period? You do still have your guys in baseball who do not throw unbelievably hard and rely on the movement and location, precise location of their pitches to be successful. Marcus Stroman's one of them. And hell, look at how he's starting off. Absolutely terrific. He looks amazing. So you do still have your mix of pitchers in the game that are doing that. But I mean, we know that's not for everybody. Some people can only succeed off their velocity. It's part of their success. And you have hitters coming up now being highly accustomed to hitting blazing fast pitches. So if you tell these guys, maybe take a little bit of velo off your pitches, maybe it'll allow you to go a little deeper into games, maybe help your arm a little bit to keep it healthier. What kind of an adjustment will it be like for them in their starts? Are they going to get hit hard? You're going to see a surge of offense in the game because all of a sudden pitchers might be a little bit easier to hit if they have to part ways a little bit with their velocity. Like, how do you transition back to that? It would probably be a harsh awakening and a harsh adjustment. But is it worth it? If it helps these guys to stay healthier, that's the question you got to ask yourself. It's a complicated subject, man, but it's up to the league to figure this out. All we do know is that it has become too much. They need to get to the bottom of this. You can't be having guys missing time like this. Top arms in the game, like I said, it's hurtful to them in their careers and even their loved ones, I'm sure it is. But also to the sport that you miss these guys, that people who are usually drawn to their teams because of guys like this can no longer watch them pitch. Maybe it'll be a deciding factor as to whether they choose to attend a game or not. There are plenty of, I don't want to say casual fans, but there are plenty of fans out there who have their favorite player, perhaps it's a pitcher on the team, and they won't really go to a game in person and spend that money unless they're there. And that's no longer happening. It's an issue. It's a really big problem in the game right now. For the starters, do you do a six-man? And might that help the bullpen a bit to maybe pitch a little less? Yeah, it might. Might help all around. I actually think it's not a bad solution. As long as the demands on the arm are as much more severe as they are nowadays, that might be a viable solution. Maybe five-man rotation should be a thing of the past for a day and age where the ask on the arm wasn't as severe. Sure, it was still an ask. It's still the human body, the human arm is not supposed to go through that much of a laborious and severe motion that frequently and that severely under that kind of stress every few days. It's not supposed to. It's not designed to do that. So it was still a factor back then, but the game has certainly evolved. Pitching has evolved, especially in the data realm, and stress on the arm has definitely worsened. Even if they don't throw as many pitches, it is definitely even the scale when you consider the velocity, how much it has elevated over the years, and how many more pitches have developed that require different grips and different motions and different methods with the arm, causing more stress to it. I'm no doctor, but these are all things that need to be considered. But two solutions to at least consider, in my opinion, would definitely be a six-man rotation. I don't think that would hurt at all. And I would definitely consider got to keep track of it to the point where it doesn't get out of control. But I would definitely allow the pitchers to at least use minimal help in assisting with their grip on the ball. It's just going to be less stress on the forearm, the elbow, and even the hand tendons and muscles, guys, with how you have to grip it and with how you have to release the ball and maybe just twist your hand if you're throwing a sharp breaking ball, perhaps. it'll help that a bit more to not have to do that so severely if they have a little bit of grip help. Just a little bit. And again, I know it becomes complicated because where do you draw the line? But something's got to be done here. I doubt that it'll be a solution presented to take a couple of ticks of velocity off, because then again, it's a tough adjustment. And the effect that it might have on pitchers, I mean, yeah, listen, you'd have to adjust. It is what it is. You're professional athletes. That's your job. Games are constantly changing and evolving, as does life in general. So you gotta try to figure it out. I get that. But it could definitely result in a surge of offense, that's for sure. But there are a lot of potential ideas going around here about what the problem could be. And perhaps more rest in between starts and maybe allowing a little bit of an assist for gripping the ball. Maybe that could change things. Also getting some access to some pitching data about the spike in injuries and the rate that they have been increasing at the last few years would be helpful, especially since rules like the pitch clock and the banning of grip substances have taken place. I just think that with the pitch clock, for instance, I know a lot of people think that might be a cause, but there were still injuries with pitchers happening very severely and very frequently even prior to that, even prior to the pitch clock just coming in last year. Because, I mean, 2023 and 2024, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it maybe increased a little bit since the pitch clock was introduced. But without a doubt, before 2023, when the pitch clocks were first introduced, I mean, Tommy Johns were still happening every other day. Injuries were still running rampant throughout the whole league. But I definitely think it has spiked even more since the substance banning, and definitely since the velocity has ticked up as much as it has throughout baseball for years now. And the more pitches that are introduced, it's just all harmful to the human arm, I think, and we're seeing that. Even guys who are known to be durable, like Garrett Cole, having elbow problems now. It's an issue. Really, really is. And with the pitchers, it's really not even just a Yankee problem anymore. This is a problem all around the league. Take a look around. Strider and Bieber and guys like Cole, too. That's only the beginning. So many people are missing their pitchers. Verlander's down, too. The Astros are missing a number of starters. A lot of people are. It's a really, really big issue. And like I said, I think it majorly centers around the demands on the arm, how pitching has evolved and caused more stress for the arm in general, which is already not designed to do this sort of a thing on a regular basis like it's expected to in baseball, and conditioning too. Maybe the doctors have got to start looking into this too. How do we get these guys to be more durable and sustain less injuries, and less severe ones at that? Like tearing UCLs and whatnot. I've already presented my potential solutions. I don't know if you agree with much of what I'm saying or what, but it's either way, the league has got to look into this. They have to. It's tough. And if you are to introduce any sort of radical changes, you got to consider how that would affect the sport. I don't admire their jobs, but we could definitely hypothesize what the issue could be and throw some ideas around. But not good. And I'm tired of watching this happen to any pitchers, let alone the top ones in baseball. Just sucks to see it. Absolutely sucks. And that's what really relates to the Jonathan Loáisiga situation, especially as far as tearing UCLs and severe injuries like that. It's just a problem you see throughout the entire league, whether they be the starters, the bullpen guys. It's just everywhere. It's a huge problem, guys. But otherwise, that's really all I have to say about that, more or less. If you want to continue talking about them, please be sure to hit me up on social media or maybe comment underneath any of the platforms on the audio file or the video if you're listening on YouTube. Anywhere, just comment underneath wherever you're listening, and we could talk more about it. I'm always down for some baseball talk, you know that. And this is definitely a big subject in baseball, especially in light of all this news just the last couple of days with more big-time arms going down to injury. So, otherwise, guys, that is all for news. I mean, definitely a lot of time spent on a lot to talk about. Throughout the Yankees mostly, of course, and just throughout baseball as a whole. But again, next couple of days, I would not be surprised, as a reminder, if we see some Yankees roster moves being made for pitching as far as the bullpen is concerned. I would definitely like to see Clayton Beeter return. We'll see if he does. and what the Yankees do if any roster moves are being made heading into the imminent series against the Marlins. But for now, let us head into the first weekly recap of the 2024 season. For the first time this year, let's welcome back the Yapping Yankees time machine. Let's go. All right, so back to opening day we go. No need to really recap the last day or so of spring training or the series in New Mexico. Nobody is thinking about that whatsoever as we are 10 games into the regular season, I think it's safe to say. So what happened there happened. Spring training ended. We moved on to opening day a week and a half ago on Thursday, the 28th in Houston, between the Yankees and the Astros, and a lot of the in-game moments that I'm about to remind you of in these games the last week and a half. I might have already talked about at some point earlier on in the show, especially with the Juan Soto moments. You probably heard the vast majority of them with that Clips barrage at the start of the Open as it is, so a lot of it you probably already know of, but we'll still just briefly run through it all. Just all of the intense action throughout the first 10 games resulting in their 8-2 record currently, what we have seen since opening day. But especially with the Houston series in particular, I definitely call this the weekend of Waldo and Soto. And because Soto has obviously done what he has done since being in a Yankee uniform, whether it be how he looked in spring training, which was phenomenal, how he has looked in the regular season so far, which is phenomenal. So either way, can't lose. But also Oswaldo Cabrera, who has looked amazing these first 10 games as a whole, but especially right out of the gate, along with most of the rest of the team, in Houston. The stamp that he has made on this team so far, especially compared to what the vast majority of his 2023 season was. I mean, we knew this guy was probably just going to be infield depth at least to start the year before it was revealed that both Peraza and DJ would be starting the season on the injured list. But now that he has been forced into sort of a starting third baseman role to start, well, it has certainly not been just a necessary or even painful experience for the Yankees to have to rely on him because they simply have no other choice. But it has been a privilege and glorious to watch because he has kicked ass. Between going deep, between the situational hitting, between the patient at-bats. Yeah, he had a stupid mistake in today's game, but the even great defense, even sliding in at shortstop when needed for Volpe with the day that he needed off when his stomach was bothering him really bad. He apparently had some sort of a stomach virus, slid over to shortstop, but mostly playing third base and showcasing, for the most part, some very fine defense. I mean, he has been a godsend to start, and again, especially compared to his 2023, yeah, he finished off the season good, but that was after a whole lot of bad in 2023 for Waldo. We know that the vast majority of the offense was awful last year. But he was definitely a big part of that whenever he played. And now in 2024, it's a new person. Obviously, mostly batting from the left side we've seen this, but even today we saw it from the right side. It doesn't really make much of a difference. He has been nothing less than a joy to watch. And especially combined with Soto, this was their weekend in Houston. It was... The series left me speechless. If you would have told me that before the series started, the Yankees would have left Houston with anything more than just a series split, I would have said, all right, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, hell, I wouldn't have really even lost sleep necessarily over a split. I would have found a way to live with that. Not the end of the world, but a sweep? My God. Would have never expected it. Starting opening day, though, was Mr. Nestor Cortez. And I have voiced concerns about him based off what we saw in spring training with his inconsistency and obviously 2023 spending most of the season hurt, but I was really hoping that we would see some steps forward from him in what would hopefully be a more effective and healthy 2024. Unfortunately, we have not seen much of that to start, at least. I'm still going to be patient with him because it's only been a couple of starts. I mean, he'll be back out on the mound tomorrow, so we'll see his third start very shortly. But at least with this start, it wasn't absolutely brutal. It was more of just an early issue more than anything. But we saw something very similar. He almost mimicked this start in his Arizona start, in his second start. And while it wasn't the end of the world, it's not a habit you want to get into, getting your team into early holes right off the bat, because it's just not a good thing to get into. It's not a good mindset to put your offense in, that every single time it's your turn around in the rotation, they're going to have to dig themselves out of a hole early. That's not something you want to get in the habit of doing, and it's unfortunately a habit that Nestor has had in his first couple of starts here. Because right away, in the bottom of the first, 2-run single for Chas McCormick, RBI single for Diaz, and then in the bottom of the second, solo shot for Jake Myers, a tank job. So 2 innings, and right away to start the second. And obviously at this point to start, we were all thinking the worst. But the Yankee offense, like I said, with their resiliency, with their guts that they have shown early on in the season, in the top of the 5th, because Nestor did relax after that, fortunately, did end up giving them 5 innings, and those first 2 innings were not pretty. And the final line, as a result of it, wasn't stellar, but he only did allow 1 base runner, I believe, retired 12 of 13, if I'm correct, after that Jake Myers solo shot. So he did settle down, but again, started off really bad out of the gate. Final line, 5 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts with the 1 home run. But after that, the offense did their thing. A lot of what they've been doing for the vast majority of the games early on here. Juan Soto started off the scoring for the 2024 season with an RBI single driving home Jose Trevino for the first run. It was 4-1. Then Anthony Rizzo is hit by a pitch with the bases loaded, made it 4-2. Anthony Volpe walked with the bases loaded. Another portion of his elite patience at the plate this year so far. Top of the 6th, Waldo tied the game on a solo shot, 4-4. A rocket to right center field. Awesome to see. And right after that, we were just saying, oh my God, Waldo's off to this sort of a start. 2 for 4 in this game as well, with a big tying home run. The hell's going on here? And then in the top of the 7th, Alex Verdugo with a sacrifice fly. Driving home Aaron Judge put the Yankees ahead 5-4. And the Yankees would end up holding that lead with the help of the bullpen and winning 5-4 on opening day in Houston. Loaizaga got the win on the day. 2 shutout innings. Did give up 4 hits. Wasn't too effective, but managed to keep them off the board still. Only struck out 1, but still 2 shutout innings. Ian Hamilton with a shutout inning of his own, and Clay Holmes giving us all an absolute heart attack in the 9th inning, but still getting out of it with the help of none other than Mr. Juan Soto. Pitching a scoreless inning himself and getting the first save of the year in the first game of the year. Yankees winning 5-4, and again, calling back to what happened with Soto. Unbelievable moment to end this game. Really, really anxiety-inducing situation. In the 9th inning with Clay Holmes giving up hit. And then for the second out of the inning, there was a hard ground ball base hit to right field by Kyle Tucker. And Dubon was coming home as a potential tying run, the 5th run of the game for the Astros. Juan Soto, as we've said for months now, as much as I love the guy, not typically known for his defense. Well, here he charged the ball, threw a laser home, and threw out Dubon at the plate. Even after having the game that he had at the plate, hitting, and then just doing this defensively. What a start to his regular season Yankee career. And then Alex Bregman grounded out to Anthony Volpe to end the game after that. Force at second, getting Tucker out, and that was the game. What a start to the season. Friday had a little bit different of a tone to it, but it was still very satisfying, especially with how the offense showed resolve at the end. They were very quiet for the vast majority of the game until the very end. Carlos Rodon started this game, and he looked pretty good. I mean, he did allow a decent amount of hits. 5 hits, and he did walk 3. So he lost control at times. Only 4 1/3 innings pitched. Again, I know it's the start of the season. The pitchers are still finishing up there, ramping up here. But still not going as deep into the game as you would hope. But still only allowing just 1 run, striking out 4. The velocity was way up again, so definitely a lot of positives to take away from the Rodon start nonetheless. Birdie did end up finishing the 5th inning for him, and then the bullpen took it from there with Weaver, Victor Gonzalez. Caleb Ferguson and Clayton Beater, none of them giving up any runs. As a matter of fact, the bullpen went decently into the season without giving up any runs until the Diamondback series, so they did a very nice job. And Weaver would end up getting the win on the day. But Rodon's only run that he gave up was on a Bregman RBI single in the first inning. Then he cleaned up his act after that, but the offense was quiet, so nothing happened for a while. Until the top of the 7th, where they finally broke through. The first man to drive in the first run of the game, Oswaldo Cabrera, yet again. RBI single driving Volpe home to tie the game at 1. Then Juan Soto with the bases loaded walked in the go-ahead run. 2-1 the score now. And that's what Soto will do, man. Every at-bat, even when he doesn't necessarily come through, it's probably a hard-fought one. Whether it result in a hard ground-out, long fly-out, a laser, a line-out, or just a walk, or anything that might be smaller than you'd expect him to do on a regular basis, but he's very patient. Every at-bat is just a complete drag-down battle between him and the pitcher, no matter who it is. And you're going to have to work to get him out. Obviously, occasionally you'll get him on a couple of pitches. Nobody's perfect. But the vast majority of the time, you're going to have to battle hard to even get Juan Soto out. That's why his on-base percentage is as dumb high as it is every year. He's not afraid to be patient and take his walks. He's just a pest. The ultimate pest. And he was again here with a hell of an at-bat, walking in the go-ahead run. In the top of the 8th, then, the Astros, this is what we love to see. They just started to fall apart. Fielding error by Jeremy Pena at shortstop. Then an ugly error by their pitcher Parker Mashinsky, just throwing the ball away down the right field line on an Austin Wells bunt attempt, which turned out to be very successful, obviously. After all that chaos, it was 4-1. Then Oswaldo Cabrera yet again, 2-run single, made it 6-1. And then Giancarlo Stanton in the top of the 9th just decided for the hell of it, why not tack on an extra one with a solo shot, his first of the year, made it 7-1, and that was the final. First 2 of opening weekend on the road in Houston belonged to the Yankees. Then Saturday and Sunday were both further tests as to the Yankees' resilience. This game was started by none other than Mr. Marcus Stroman, who looked very, very good. Like I said before, Marcus is definitely an arm in baseball that does not throw very hard. You'll see him probably top out at like 93 miles an hour with his fastball, but his pitches move amazing. He has a number of pitches. He'll throw 6 or so pitches at you throughout a game. And between all those different kinds of pitches being thrown at you and the movement on them, if he is healthy, he's going to look as good as he has in these first 2 starts. He really has looked fantastic. 3 runs did score often, but they were all results of sloppy defense, so none of them were earned. So his final line, especially as far as earned runs, still looked just fine. He is also by far the Yankee pitcher who has, by a long shot, gone deepest into games. Both games he went 6 innings. In this one he went 6, only allowed 4 hits, 3 runs, but again, none earned, so he still has an ERA of 0. 2 walks and 4 strikeouts, so he still showed a lot of good in this game. But the Yankees were still resilient. After 3 innings, they were down 2-1 because Dubon with that 2-run double in the bottom of the 2nd. And then with Anthony Rizzo reaching on just a straight-up horrible fielding error by Jose Abreu, driving home Soto, made it 2-1. And then in the bottom of the 5th, another run, the 3rd run of the game, came home on a throwing error by Volpe on an attempted double play. And that's where the unearned runs come into play for Stroman. But then in the top of the 7th, after Stroman exited the game, this is what actually allowed him to get the win because he was the last pitcher to pitch for the Yankees before this happened. So fortunately, his efforts did result in a win at the very least, at least for this start. But tying the game with a 2-run homer in the top of the 7th was Mr. Oswaldo Cabrera again. Just unbelievable. And then right after him, with his first home run of the year, this is one of the ones you heard in the clips early on in the open of the show, but Mr. Juan Soto. And this home run was unbelievable because he almost looked like he was like lunging out and reaching out for it for this home run, and then it just found its way into the left field seat somehow the other way. He hits to all fields all the time. That's one of the many attributes that he has that I've given him huge credit for months, and we saw it again with this home run. He's just unbelievable. I have almost never seen much of anyone like him. And then in the top of the 8th, Anthony Volpe after Juan Soto gave him the 4-3 lead with that home run. Hit a home run of his own. First home run of the year for little Anthony. Solo shot made it 5-3, and that's the final. So Stroman pitched as well as he did. The offense, again, fighting back at the end with Oswaldo and Soto and Volpe. Ian Hamilton pitching 2 scoreless innings after Stroman was done. Holmes doing the same, earning his second save of the year in just the third game, and the Yankees win 5-3. They go for the sweep on Sunday, and they would get it. Again, majorly in part of Mr. Juan Soto. Who else? Schmidt did start this game. He went 5 1/3, allowed 7 hits, so quite a bit of hits, but otherwise he looked okay. I mean, he allowed 3 runs, all earned. Didn't walk anybody, and struck out 5, so he's had worse starts. He's also had better, but not absolutely brutal. I'd like for him to not give up 7 hits, but it definitely could have been worse. Didn't get the win on the day. Nick Birdie would, much later in the game. Loaisiga pitched a scoreless inning himself again. Did not do so well, actually. He's the reason that 2 of those 3 runs on Schmidt's final line were his, because Loaisiga inherited his jam and allowed the runs to score, so they were Schmidt's responsibility. So Loaisiga didn't do too great in this outing, but none of them were charged to him, so for him it was a scoreless inning. Ferguson pitched a scoreless inning. Birdie got 2 outs scoreless. He ended up getting the win because of when the Yankees took the lead back. He was the last one pitching before Holmes got his 3rd save of the year and gave us a heart attack yet again. But nonetheless, that was the start that Schmidt had. And as far as the offense was concerned, I was actually getting a little nervous because the major theme of the series up to this point was that the Astros would get the lead early in the prior 3 games, and then they would blow it to the Yankees later on because of the resilience of their offense. This game, the Yankees actually struck first on a Jose Trevino RBI single on a little pop-up past first base, and it drove home Giancarlo Stanton. So they actually jumped out first. Bottom of the 3rd, this is actually the only run that Schmidt gave up while he was actually physically on the mound, as I had mentioned before. A solo shot to Jose Altuve, which looked like a pop-up. I don't know how the hell this was a home run into the left field seats, but nonetheless, it tied the game at 1. Then in the top of the 4th, Mr. John Birdie, freshly acquired from the Marlins, made his presence known, contributing here. RBI single to right field, made it 2-1. Aaron Judge tacked on further, otherwise had a pretty slow weekend himself, but who's nervous? Not I. At the time, because we know it's Aaron Judge. But he did get himself a nice sac fly here, made it 3-1. And then Loaisiga came in and allowed the damage he did. But then in the top of the 9th, with the game tied at 3, was when Mr. Juan Soto came in huge. A line drive into left field, driving home Gleyber Torres, another clip of the many you heard at the open of the show. Gave the Yankees a 4-3 lead. Clay Holmes comes in the 9th inning. He is having to pitch for the 3rd time in 4 days, and the taxing on his arm is starting to show because he is getting in even more trouble. But he had some help from his defense, like he needed in the first game with Juan Soto at that unbelievable throw home. But you know what? Sometimes that's how the job gets done. Sometimes you need that help. John Birdie made an unbelievable dive down at 3rd base, which definitely flew under the radar as far as big moments for the rest of the inning. But that was a huge game-saving play down the line for freshly acquired John Birdie. And then a deep fly ball was hit by Yordan Alvarez, which damn near gave us all a heart attack, but Judge caught it not far from the wall at all for the 2nd out. And then to end the game, Alex Verdugo made a beautiful sliding catch in left field to end it and finally release us from our anxiety and win the game unbelievably after another late rally and some real nice heroics in the bottom of the 9th. 4-3, Yankees sweep the Astros in Houston. What a series, guys. I don't really know what else to even say. Unbelievable. So then the Yankees, riding on that high, continue on to Arizona. No days off. Again, like we've spoken about in the past, very unorthodox start to the season. No days off. First 7 games on the road for the Yankees. Not a day off. We're just steamrolling forward on the schedule right into Arizona. Starting this game for the first time in 2024 in his first start in years because of his Tommy John surgery. I was very excited to see him, and my excitement paid off, was Mr. Luis Gil. And he had himself a very nice outing, guys. 4 2/3, only gave up 1 hit and 1 run, 3 walks. The walks tend to be high with him at times. We've spoken about that. Sometimes he's a little... creates more work for himself than is necessary. Let's just say that. but his pitches were as electric as ever. Really looked phenomenal. Struck out 6 in just 4 2/3. Strikeout numbers high as always with him. Electric stuff. Looked real good. Just needed one more out to be eligible for a win. Unfortunately, did not get that. But Luke Weaver would get it after him, his second win of the year. Weaver, because of his middle relief work so far early on here, has racked up a lot of W's here out of the bullpen. Another one here, going 2 1/3, only allowing a run himself. Birdie and Victor Gonzalez pitching scoreless innings after that, and Gonzalez actually earning his first save of the 2024 season. Congratulations to him. But Luis Gil looked fantastic. The offense did their thing. Oswaldo Cabrera taking his elite gameplay into Arizona, getting the scoring started. 1-0 on an RBI single by him. Gleyber Torres starting to get some heat under his bat a little bit as well. RBI double driving Waldo home, making it 2-0. Volpe, RBI single, made it 3-0 as he continued his dominant batting. Austin Wells, sac fly, drove Verdugo home, and then 2 errors, one by Gurriel and then the other by Nelson, also allowed Volpe to score. So 5-0 after that, after the Diamondbacks fell apart a little bit in the field, reminding us Yankee fans of when the Astros fell apart later in the second game of the series. So that was funny to see. Bottom of the third, that sac fly by Marte was the only run that Luis Gil allowed. And another sac fly by Marte later in the game off of Weaver. So Marte was the only source of D-backs offense. Otherwise, the Yankees won 5-2. Again, Weaver with the W. So very nicely done. Tuesday was one of the only 2 Yankee losses that they have sustained so far. Like I had mentioned before, Nestor, unfortunately, majorly repeated a lot of what he did in his first start in Houston, with getting a lot of damage done against him early, but he didn't even really settle down as nicely as he did in the Houston start afterwards, after that Myers home run. He didn't even really settle in this start. 5 innings, 8 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, and only 2 strikeouts. His stuff just looked really flat. Fastball really didn't have much life to it. He was just getting clobbered. I'm honestly surprised he even lasted 5 innings in this game. He obviously took the loss. The Yankees did not score any runs. This was the first game and only one of the 2 that they would look really quiet in. And Victor Gonzalez even gave up a couple of runs of his own after that. Cousins pitched in this game as well. It was his first time pitching with the Yankees, and allowed 2 runs but only 1 earned in his 2 innings pitched. Did strike out 4, so again, what I mentioned before about him having good put-away stuff, but he's just got to get it under control. But otherwise, 7 runs allowed. Yankees didn't score a single run, only had 3 hits the whole night. 1 by Soto, 1 by Volpe, and 1 by Cabrera. Probably the 3 Yankees having the best start to the year anyway, so that's fitting. But regardless, yeah, 7-0 loss on Tuesday. Not pretty. And then Wednesday would be a hell of an adventure for the Yankees to actually take the series in Arizona. Starting this game was Rodon. 5 1/3, 7 hits, so quite a bit of hits, but otherwise, again, Rodon mainly looked pretty solid. And he almost went 6 full innings, so that's some decent length. Would like for him to finish 6, but he was obviously gassed at the end, starting to get towards the end of his rope. 2 runs only, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, did give up 2 home runs. Just got to keep the ball in the park. That's really a problem of his at times. Ian Hamilton also went 2 2/3 scoreless. Hamilton's had a hell of a start to the year out of the pen. Loizica, scoreless inning of his own, looked really nice. Clay Holmes, who would get the win on the night, but went an inning and a third, allowing 3 runs, none of them earned, because of a crucial Anthony Volpe error and just a lot of bad luck on soft contact and just a mess. And then Ferguson ended up finishing the game, but this game was just straight chaos. Diamondbacks struck first off of Rodon on a Blaze Alexander solo shot. Then the Yankees answered back on an Aaron Judge 2-run shot, his first of the year, a nicely well-struck ball to right center. Love that from our captain. Marte tied the game off of Rodon in the second and final run that Rodon would give up. Solo shot, 2-2. Then it remained scoreless all the way through to extras. It was 2-2 that whole time. Then extras is when it got nuts. Top of the 10th, Alex Verdugo, who honestly has not done too much at the plate in the first 10 games. He really is not. A lot of ground balls to second, a lot of just pop-ups or fly balls, but He usually has a bit of a knack for the clutch, and here he did too. An absolute tank job with Anthony Volpe, the ghost runner, on base starting the inning. First homer of the year, and it came at a hell of a time. Gave the Yankees a 4-2 lead in the top of the 10th. And he had coined the famous expression just days before this, calling the Yankees a bunch of dogs out here, talking about their resilience and their drive and how good that they have looked. They're just dogs. So a lot of people have just been barking at him lately. That's been the theme in 2024, I guess, that the Yankees are dogs. That seems to be the developing theme, which is pretty damn funny, so I don't have a problem with it. Bottom of the 10th, though, it did unravel, like I mentioned before. Clay Holmes had to end up coming in, and with him on the mound, bad throwing error by Anthony Volpe, and then after that resulted in an RBI single on soft contact, soft ground ball, just a lot of bad luck in that regard for Clay Holmes as well. And he also hurt himself with a hit batter the next inning, and a wild pitch in this inning as well did not help either. But had the error not happened, it would have been a lot easier and a lot quicker of a win. But I have to get even more dramatic after that. Top of the 11th, after the Diamondbacks had retied it in the bottom of the 10th, aggravatingly so. I was livid. I was on my way home from work listening to this on the radio. Top of the 11th, on a balk, John Birdie came home to score with Juan Soto at the plate. And then after that, Aaron Judge, RBI double driving Glaber home, made it 6-4. And then the bottom of the 11th, the Diamondbacks actually drove home a run, made it 6-5 off of Jorge Barrosa's bat. And then it actually came down to a very interesting situation with Ferguson pitching, just straight anxiety at this point. First and second, 2 outs. The Yankees had a decision to make because they had Moreno coming up to bat. But then in the 9-hole, the relief pitcher, McGaw, actually had to hit because the Diamondbacks bench was depleted. So with Ferguson pitching, they made the decision, smart decision, to intentionally walk Moreno to load the bases, which is a risk because you're putting the winning run in scoring position. But, oh my goodness, it was so anxiety-inducing. There was one foul ball where McGaw hit it down the right field line. It was soft contact, but I just thought it was just going to be one that just found its way past a diving Rizzo down the line and end the game, and I would have to deal with a relief pitcher walking a game off in extra innings. I probably would have flipped the couch. But it did not happen. Got the strikeout. Pitch was a little outside, but got the strikeout. And the Yankees won a crazy one in Arizona to end it in 11 innings, 6-5. Then they finally got their day off on Thursday to come home for an electric home opener on Friday, which didn't turn out to be very electric as far as the team itself. The crowd was electric. That's what I'm alluding to. But other than Marcus Stroman and Anthony Volpe went 2 for 4 again on the day. Another multi-hit game for him amongst the many. But other than those two, really nobody came to play. Stroman looked absolutely terrific. Another 6-inning shutout performance. Only 3 hits allowed, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. Looked absolutely terrific. So he's 12 innings into his season with no earned runs allowed. Still an ERA of 0. The offense was just totally quiet. Instead of just a hit here and there. Volpe with 2, Rizzo with 1, Verdugo with 1, Birdie with 1, Torres with 1. Nothing really to speak of. And later on in the game, unfortunately, after Stroman's great efforts, Ferguson came in and allowed an absolute tank job, followed by a mess created at the end of the game by Dennis Santana, who ran out of gas after pitching nearly 2 innings, and then Birdie coming in afterwards and just being completely wild all over the place, resulting in the Blue Jays having a 3-0 lead going into the bottom of the 9th. Actually made it a little interesting with Rizzo and Volpe reaching base and Verdugo hitting a ball to the warning track, threatening to tie the game, but too little too late. Yankees lost 3-0, the second of just their 2 losses. Really lifeless. I came down a bit hard on them on Twitter because I was like, that's some really lame energy to come out with the home opener, with how loud and energetic the place was, and to put out an offensive effort like that. Not about that. Especially Stroman pitching his heart out the way he did, but to say the least, the Yankees bounced back the following 2 days, yesterday and today. So, there's that. But yesterday's game was a lot more stressful than it had to be. For sure. Schmidt started the game, and he had the luxury of the Yankees jumping out big in front right away. Kevin Gossman, pitching for the Blue Jays, another really talented arm in the game of baseball, and just looked terrible. Aaron Judge clubbed a bomb off him, a 2-run shot in the bottom of the first to make it 2-0, immediately followed by a porch job by Giancarlo Stanton, his second of the year, so 3-0 right off the bat. And then right away in the bottom of the second, Glaber, sac fly on what almost looked like a grand slam. Really looked like he got it, but he just missed it. It was really so close. Off the bat, it looked like a grand slam. But I'll take a sac fly any day of the week. Then a passed ball scored a 5th run, and then a Juan Soto RBI single scored the 6th run. So 6-0 going into the 3rd inning. So I was like, all right, hopefully we settle in and Schmidt gives some good length here. He did not. 4 1/3, 6 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Yeah, only 2 runs, but to only go 4 1/3 when your guys give you that lead, and to just create more work for yourself than is really necessary. 3 walks, 6 hits. It's just, it could have definitely been worse, but my God, could it have been a better start. You got to do better than 4 1/3 when your guys give you that kind of a lead. Then Luke Weaver came in afterwards. He would end up getting the win on the day, but he himself ended up giving up 3 runs in 2 innings. And at this point, the Blue Jays were creeping up. Victor Gonzalez really looked better than anybody in this game. I mean, Clay Holmes got 2 outs at the end for the save, his 4th of the year, and gave up a hit. But, I mean, Victor Gonzalez, an inning and a third, only allowing a walk, but otherwise going clean, he was probably the best one in the whole game. Really odd. Even Ian Hamilton wasn't 100% sharp, partially damaged by Clay Holmes as well, but his final line, 2/3 of an inning, 3 runs, 2 hits given up, a walk. Just odd. Really, really weird. The final score ultimately was 9-8 after all that. It was just really weird. And the Yankees tacked on a little bit to try to stay away, and thank God they did, otherwise they would have lost. Bottom of the 5th, 2-run homer by Rizzo, his first homer of the year, like I mentioned before, and then Soto thankfully tacked on that 9th run in the bottom of the 6th, but after all that bullpen nonsense and all the chaos going on, it was 9-8. So, I mean, listen, a win's a win. But that got a lot scarier than it had to, that's for sure. And then you head into today's game, another interesting one. Luis Gil, starting his 2nd game of the year. And for the most part, he looked good. I mean, it was just a rough 3rd inning. He got a lot more wild than he had to be. But otherwise, the strikeout stuff was still very much there. He was in control for a chunk of the start. Didn't quite make it through 5 again, but almost did. Hopefully get a little bit more length out of him next time. 4 1/3, 2 hits, 2 runs, 4 walks. That was where he started to lose control in the 3rd inning. And 8 strikeouts. So there's the strikeout stuff again. But otherwise, the Yankee offense, they did their jobs for sure. Thankfully. But it was really weird. Luis Gil walked in a run in the top of the 3rd, and in the bottom of the 3rd, the Blue Jays walked in a run. So tit for tat there. But then after Rizzo walked with the bases loaded in a really nice at-bat against Francis, something grand happened off the bat of Giancarlo Stanton.
Deep to left field. There it goes. See ya. A grand slam for Stanton. Oh, what a shot. And 5-1 Yankees.
You hear the sound of the bat? Oh my gosh. And how about how loud the stadium was too? What a shot it was off the facing of the second deck in left field. And I got to tell you, Stanton for the vast majority of the season up until the last couple of days, you know, he had 3 hits in yesterday's game, had the grand slam in today's game. He was really looking pretty shaky. I got to be honest, but I had begged him on Twitter to stop letting me down because we all know the expectations of what I predicted for him this year. 140, 145 plus, and 40 plus home runs. 145 games meaning. But 40 plus home runs, 40 or more, and I put a lot of stock into him at the risk of sounding very delusional because I refuse to give up on the guy. I had begged him on Twitter as of Friday to stop letting me down so far. I think he read my tweet. My God, what a shot for him. So that made it 5-1. Then again, the Blue Jays started to creep up a little bit against Gil, and then also Cousins was a little bit shaky, but the bullpen managed to only keep them at 3, thankfully. And then the Yankees continued to add on after that bottom of the 6th on a wild pitch. Volpe came home to score. And then in the bottom of the 8th, Waldo, RBI single. And that's from the right side of the plate, so we've been doing it like that. Juan Soto with a sac fly, driving Oswaldo home. And speaking of Volpe, another terrific game out of him, like I had mentioned before. Had himself another 3-hit game, 424 batting average right now, and an OPS of well over 1,000, nearly 1,100. And there you go, guys. Some in-depth detail as to the amazing action that we've had in the first week and a half of baseball here for the New York Yankees in 2024. Unbelievable stuff. And I look up at the clock right now. We are an hour and 45 minutes in already. My God almighty. Let's get to the social media segment after we have finally been caught up. Guys, we knew it was going to be a long show after everything that's happened the last 2 weeks. You had to expect this, and I was just going to yap to the ends of the earth. But some really fun, unbelievable action happening in the first 10 days. I cannot help myself. Social media segment today, obviously. Again, another open-ended question, as has been the habit for a while now. Got a lot of interaction on this. I'll just try to read out as many as I can with the time that I have. The question for this week: after the first week and a half, which Yankee player has you the most excited for their 2024 seasons, seeing how they played to start off here so far? Mine, you'd obviously expect mine to probably be Juan Soto with how I've praised the guy. And he's definitely up there. Possibly even tied with the actual guy I'm going to pick. Possibly much to your surprise with how much I have just praised Soto. And this doesn't mean I praise him any less. I want to make that clear. But the guy I'm actually going to pick, guys, is Anthony Volpe. The first week and a half, I have seen nothing but just stellar game plan, all ends of the ball. He's had a couple of silly mistakes defensively, but it's going to happen. That's going to happen to anybody. But especially with the bat, guys, I cannot tell you how happy I am that he has made virtually all the changes that I was praying that he would make before the season started. And look at how it has benefited him and the Yankees. I mean, the guy is a hitting machine right now. He's unstoppable. Seems like every game he has multiple hits. Leveled out swing, almost Jeter-esque. Bat to ball. Still has that long swing occasionally, and earlier in counts especially, that's fine. But especially when he is later in a count, possibly with 2 strikes, he is visibly straightening out and leveling out and shortening up and being patient. He's not afraid to take his walks. He's getting on base again. He's playing his game, and look at what's happening as a result. Everything that I was praying would happen in him taking another step forward in another season of experience in the big leagues. This kid, if this is his trajectory, is going to continue to be someone else. I cannot wait to see him continue to play. There's been a lot of talk about him possibly moving around in the lineup, particularly into the leadoff spot because of how much he's getting on base again and how many hits he's getting. I'd be willing to give Glaber some more time in there, but I mean, if Volpe stays this way and you could create a dynamic of Volpe, then Soto, then Judge, then Rizzo, then Stanton, and then Glaber, or then Glaber and Stanton. I know they love to have the lineup right now the way it is, constant left, right, left, right, left, right, which I love. But I mean, if you could do that and probably move Volpe to the leadoff spot and create that kind of dynamic at the very top of the lineup, him leading into Soto, that's just unfair for whoever they're facing. Oh my gosh. That'd be something else. So Volpe is actually my answer. After the changes that I've seen in the first week and a half that I could not be happier to see, many of them I mentioned that I was hoping he would make for months. I'm over the moon about it. Let's read as many replies as we can before we wrap up here. At Toby2Cat starts us off here, saying Soto and Stroman. Well, listen, after his first 2 starts, Stroman is definitely a worthy inclusion. Definitely. And Soto, yeah. I mean, come on. At Yankee Ken says, has to be Soto. He looks primed for a big-time year. Yeah, he's just elite. I mean, what can we say? At SN Spacer 31 says, there's one and only one. I appreciate the wording. At B Welch 1943 says, I'm going to cite Oswaldo Cabrera simply because he is performing much better than I felt he could. Listen, that's not a bad answer at all. Waldo has started unbelievably, again, especially when you compare it to much of 2023. Nobody expected this. Totally respect that answer. Rebecca at Peace Now for Life says, I have to go with Soto as he's so exciting to watch, and I can't wait to see all that he does throughout the whole year. Have to say, though, Volpe is a close second. Love what we've seen so far. Absolutely, Rebecca. 100%. Absolutely love what Volpe has done. I couldn't be happier. I really couldn't. At Javien114 says Soto and Volpe. Oswaldo too, so 3 for me. That's fair. All 3 of them. They're really the center of the offense. At Cashman Sucks NYY says Volpe has had a better start to this year. Well, to say the least, yeah. I mean, yeah, the offense as a whole has done a very nice job contributing. Plenty of other guys have had plenty of their moments as well, but really the center of it all through the first week and a half was definitely Soto, Volpe, and Oswaldo for sure. At Police TJ says, say it ain't Soto. No doubt with the impact he's provided to the Yankees. They better get him extended. Amen to that. To the extension part especially. At Crusaders BBNY says, Waldo, going to be almost like a great 6th man off the bench in basketball. Great all-around player that can play every position. Yeah. With the versatility, if you're going to group that with how he started, if he's going to hit like this, invaluable, as they say. At Baliga Donnell, sorry if I mispronounced that, my guy, says Volpe. Yeah, that's fair. At Andrew Caruso, 77, shout out to Andrew. He's always giving me some very nice shout outs on Twitter. Andrew says Soto, Volpe, and Judge are obvious, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say Rizzo. The concussion situation is over, so I'm looking forward to a mostly healthy season from him and seeing the production we are used to. Yeah, we've seen some good moments here early on. Got on base a lot today. Hit his first home run yesterday. So yeah, hopefully this has just begun to be the start of some good Rizzo contributions. You hope so. At Evan Wetzel 11 says it has to be Soto in the offseason pickups. Each game he has done something to lift these guys on a team that is an ace down and a bullpen piece going to Tommy John. We are motivated, and that starts with Soto, who has even helped inspire our captain. Well, yeah, I mean, with the overall patience and discipline the Yankees have shown at the plate, you have to imagine that, yeah, you have to give them their own individual credit as well, but watching Soto, what he does, even a lot of the players have been talking about how much of a pleasure it's been to watch him. He's most certainly had at least a little bit of an effect on them for sure, so I definitely agree with that. Watching someone that elite and generational, it's going to rub off on some of the other guys to a certain degree. At Colleen NYY fan says, I'm excited for Anthony Volpe's sophomore season. He is a different player this year. He put in the work during the offseason and just got better. I noticed right away during spring training. He hit the ball harder, and his throws were ropes. So much better, stronger, tougher. Yeah, the throws on his defense, too. Yeah, it's part of how his defense has still been good. His arm is definitely stronger. Good point there. But yeah, everything about his hitting mechanics has changed, many of which I have mentioned for months, even going back to the end of last year, that I hope he would improve for 2024, and he has. I'm just so happy. At iGolfDoYou says, I will say Volpe. I think we all know what can be expected of Soto, but none of us really knew if Volpe would or could take that next step for sure. All of us Yankee fans have to be more than pleased with what we have witnessed so far. I totally agree. Totally. At A Nassor says Marcus Stroman. Fair enough. I mean, I definitely think, like I said before, that's a worthy inclusion. He has looked terrific to start the year. All right, let's just do a few more. I'm really trying to go as fast as I can to try to squeeze in as many people as possible here. I'm definitely going to cross the 2-hour mark. That is crazy. At Laura_Icemont says Soto, Volpe, and Cabrera all have been off to a hot start. Yeah, they've been the center of it. At C_Fischetto10, hope that's the way it says it. That's my Italian pronunciation. Says Volpe is definitely an obvious answer, but I'm going with Heel. Has electric stuff and will be key to pick up slack at the back end of the rotation, especially with Cole gone early. I like that. Under the radar pick. Other than, occasionally giving up a little bit more walks and creating a little bit more work for himself than is necessary, getting a little wild at times, which we've mentioned is really the only remaining problem for Heel that we saw a little bit in the past. He gets that under control, and he'll be able to give that little bit more length we're looking for and just really soar, honestly, because the stuff is there. Very much so. At I Don't Wear Red Sox. Good for you. Says Stanton, he's actually hitting. Yeah, last couple of days he started to. Like I said before, my begging seems to have worked. At Baseball Tzar says Soto. Yep. At Joe Yankee, though, says Soto, but Volpe is right there as well. Hell yeah. At JMV GD56 John says, at 10:15 last night, I'd have said Ian Hamilton. Now I'm thinking Volpe. Yeah, Hamilton may have had a little bit of a rough go at it, but I mean, he still has looked phenomenal for the vast majority of his outings to start here. But yeah, Volpe is a great pick. That was the first one that came to mind for me, despite my love for Juan Soto and many others too. At Michael Eddie 6 says Volpe. Yeah, a lot of Volpes. See here. At Cranberry Dancer says AV. Anthony Volpe, all right. At Dan Harrenstan. Wow, that's a throwback name. Luke Weaver. Well, he's definitely going to be key to that middle relief role. He has been quite a bit early on here. All right, guys, let's go on to our last usual two. As always, great replies. Glad a lot of you agree with me. Glad I'm not alone. First of the final two, as always, is my girlfriend at Vic Salimo. And Vic says, Soto. We knew what to expect, but it's still exciting to see it happen. I have to also say Volpe has me pleasantly surprised, too. I think with more playing time, now that he's adjusted, he's only going to get better and be a vital player. Don't sleep on Stanton either. He's making a fire comeback. Last couple of days, hell yeah. But yeah, Soto and Volpe, that's a consensus. Last but not least, as always, is my mom, Julia Gina Scudero, saying, boy, was it hard to not have a Yapping Yankees podcast last week with the start of the season we're having so far. You don't have to tell me, Mom. Trust me, I know. To answer your question, I have two names to give you of who I think will have a great season, Juan Soto and Anthony Volpe. I'm so impressed with their performances so far and love the changes that Volpe has made. This is going to be some show. Thanks, Mike. Some show, you are right about that, about 2 hours. My gosh. You are certainly welcome, and thank you, Mom, for your reply. Thank you all for your replies, as I think it is just about time to put a bow on and wrap up episode 215 of Yapping Yankees today. All I can say is that if you have listened to the entire show, or even most of the show, and are still with me after 2 hours, you are goated. That's all I can say. But before I head on out, just a couple of reminders. As always, remember to follow me on all socials if you do not already. Facebook fan page, Mike Scudero NY. Twitter is at Mike Scudero, Twitter or X, that is. And Instagram is Mike Scuds97. Please also subscribe to Yapping Yankees on all 4 platforms it is available on. That is YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And show your love across all 4 of them, my friends. And if you've missed any Yapping Yankees episodes 34 up to today's episode 215, could be found on YouTube. And every Yapping Yankees episode going all the way back to episode 1 up to today's episode are all available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Once again, I thank you 3,000 for listening to me yap today, my friends. I have been your host, Mike Scudero, as always, and we shall yap again next Sunday, April 14th, when it will no doubt be a shorter episode than this, that's for sure. But I will also be coming at you with episode 216 of Yapping Yankees. But until then, guys, hang in there. Be patient, stay safe, look out for your loved ones, go ahead and kick life's ass this week, as I always tell you to do each week, my friends. And let's enjoy the next week of Yankees baseball, guys. Heading into tomorrow night's game with the Marlins and starting a 3-game set Monday through Wednesday. Yankees are tied for the best record in baseball through the first 10. Looking forward to seeing what they have in store for the next 6 before we speak again next Sunday on the 14th. The Yankees will have their 3rd and final game in Cleveland against the Guardians that day at 1:40 p.m. Eastern. We'll see how they fare, Marlins and Guardians, this coming week as the season continues on, as we head into the 2nd week of April. And if the next week is anything like the first week and a half, then we will have some more fun in store to discuss next Sunday. Until then, my friends, take care, and let's go Yanks.